The first time I heard the word fraud used against me, it wasn't from an enemy. It was from my mother, in a courtroom, with her voice low but not unsure, as if I was a stranger who'd simply wandered into the family's story by mistake. They sued me for impersonating a war veteran, for lying about serving, for fabricating an entire mission to claim the $17 million trust my father left, a trust reserved only for a confirmed combat veteran. There was no negotiation, no family meeting, just a subpoena in my inbox and silence in the group chat. In court, their lawyer called me a well-rehearsed manipulator. They had documents, empty military files, no rank, no discharge papers, no photos, no commendations, no proof I had ever served. And I said nothing because I couldn't. I served under Operation Leviathan, a mission so classified our existence was wiped before it was ever acknowledged. No dog tags, no press. Just 12 of us in an autonomous zone surrounded by hunter drones trying to keep the wounded breathing with tech that didn't officially exist. I wasn't allowed to talk, not in that courtroom, not on that witness stand, not even to defend myself, so I didn't. And the silence, it didn't make me look brave, it made me look guilty. My mother stared straight ahead. My brother, he scoffed. And my sister pulled up a photo from Christmas 10 years ago, captioned it. She was always dramatic. If you're still here, you're the kind of listener who looks past the noise. If you believe some truths live outside the spotlight, consider subscribing. This story isn't just about war, it's about betrayal, and the kind of justice that doesn't need permission to exist. The judge, Lysandra Velez, never looked at me more than twice. Her expression was unreadable, her questions cold, but I noticed something when she called for recess on day 3. Just for a second, her hand brushed her collarbone like a scar had itched, like a memory woke up. And for the first time, I wondered if someone in that room might remember me not as a ghost, but as the reason they were still alive. They say if there's no record, it didn't happen. No timestamp, no image, no name logged. Then what's left? Pain and memory. I was 23, 2 weeks after graduating the biometric engineering program at Fort Argus. No ceremony, just a thumbprint, a locked dossier, and a one-way flight to an unmarked zone we weren't allowed to call war. They told us we were ghost medics, unseen, unsupported, unsentimental. Our job was simple: simulate organ function using portable AI rigs long enough to get wounded intel carriers out of fire zones. If they died, data died. If we died, no one noticed. My name wasn't Mira in that place. I didn't have one. I had a unit code, no contact, no outside, and definitely no photos for scrapbooks. There was one mission, one night, where we were ambushed by our own defense system. Rogue drones flagged us as enemy. 3 men were shredded before I could reach them. 17 remained, 17 lives, 1 kit, and 1 blood filtration sleeve I'd only practiced on synthetic skin. There was a woman mid-40s, chest wound, punctured artery, no anesthetic, no compression unit, just my hands, and training, that said. So like the machine is watching, because the machine is. I still dream of her face, the way her eyes never closed, the way her teeth clenched but she never screamed. She mouthed something I couldn't hear over the sirens, and then I lost her, or I thought I did. The evac drone tagged her as vital. Took her first. That was the last I saw her. We never found out who lived. That wasn't our role. We were black ink medics, not for medals, just to keep the machine running long enough for someone else to claim the win. After my final drop, I was told, "Your record ends here. You don't exist, but we'll know." Know what? They never said. So yes, when I sat in court facing a family who demanded I show proof, I understood why they didn't believe me. Because I couldn't give them documents, only ghosts and scars, none of which they were willing to see. They didn't ask if I was okay when I came back. They didn't ask where I'd been. They just asked where the money was. My father passed 7 months after my return. Heart failure. No warning, no goodbye, but he left a will. Typed, sealed, signed, and one line that rewrote everything. The Combat Trust, valued at $17 million, shall be awarded solely to the child with verified sea-level veteran credentials. Not love, not loyalty, just status. My brother exempted for medical reasons. My sister disqualified. She never served. That left me, but my name wasn't in any system they could search. No medals, no rank, just my face at the funeral and silence. Weeks later, my mother had the trust frozen. She claimed I was impersonating a veteran, said I'd faked deployment to take advantage of a grieving estate, said I was disturbed and needed to be removed from inheritance for my own good. I wasn't shocked, just tired. They could have asked, could have come to me, could have said, "Mira, tell us the truth." But they didn't want the truth. They wanted the money. They hired a legal team with military clearance access, filed motions to obtain my non-existent discharge, gathered affidavits from friends who hadn't heard from me in years, even submitted an expert witness who claimed no woman fitting Mira's profile was ever deployed under classified conditions. They painted a picture of a broken girl with a savior complex, someone who made up war stories because peace was too boring. And the media? Oh, they loved it. Heiress accused of faking military past for millions. Trust fund stolen by family ghost. One outlet called me the veteran no one remembered. I didn't comment, didn't correct, didn't post. Because if there's one thing war teaches you, it's that silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's survival. So while they smiled in interviews, held press conferences, and handed reporters curated family photos, I sat in a small cabin in Wyoming, rereading the will of the man who once whispered to me, "The real fight begins after you come home." And now I knew who I was really at war with. The courtroom smelled like copy paper and artificial lavender, the kind of scent you use when you want the blood to disappear. Courtroom 9C, Wednesday. 9:05 a.m. I wore black, not out of mourning, but because I knew they'd be in blue. Public image matters even when you're suing your own daughter. They sat 3 benches across from me. My mother perfectly composed. My brother with his arms crossed like a victim. And my sister, in pearls she never earned, flipping through notes she didn't write. None of them looked at me. Not once. The judge entered. Judge Lysandra Velez, short, sharp, silent, she read the case name. Kalin v. Kalin. It echoed louder than gunfire. Their lawyer started with, "We're here today to stop a thief not of money but of honor." He used phrases like elaborate fabrication, psychological delusion, textbook impersonation syndrome. Then he projected a blank slide. Military history, no match. Discharge status, N/A. Combat record, no record found. He turned to the jury like a magician, smiled, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you can't disappear what never existed." I said nothing, not because I was defeated, but because I wasn't allowed. The code I signed, the one that kept me alive, still held, still sacred. They asked me to take the stand. I declined. They called it avoidance. I called it discipline. The air turned thick with judgment. I could feel it in the way the jurors shifted in their chairs, in the way the stenographer slowed down her typing whenever my name was mentioned. I wasn't Mira Kalin, war medic. I was now the unproven one, the empty file, the liar in black. Outside, press cameras clicked. Inside, my family smiled like they were doing something noble. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a story where I was the villain, and they were the heirs who saved the legacy. But they forgot one thing. Silence doesn't mean surrender, and not every scar is visible on paper. Court adjourned for recess at 11:17 a.m. The bailiff announced it like it was just another coffee break. I stood up, not to stretch, just to breathe. 15 minutes. 15 minutes of pretending this wasn't a battlefield. Judge Velez remained at her bench. Everyone else cleared the room. But as I turned toward the hallway, her voice cut through the hum. MS, Kaylin. Not a question, not a command, just acknowledgement. I stopped. She didn't look at me right away. Her gaze stayed on a folder in her hand, an old file, worn at the edges, labeled LV12 Echo. Then she said, "When performing emergency thoracic closure with no sutures, no tools, and less than 3 minutes, which vessel do you seal first if the bleed is proximal to the clavicle?" I blinked. The answer came not from memory, but from muscle. "You pinch the brachiocephalic trunk above the split. Use the thumb knuckle. If it's torn, use the back of your earring post as a hold suture. It's crude, but enough to stop death for 60 seconds. She finally looked up, and I saw it not recognition, not shock, but relief. Relief like someone who'd spent years trying to convince themselves the girl in the dark field tent with blood to her elbows was just a morphine dream. Her hand rose slowly, brushing her collarbone. A scar, barely visible. And then she said, "You held pressure for 9 minutes, while the drone alarm was still sounding. You said nothing, not even your name." I didn't reply, didn't move, just met her eyes. For the first time in weeks, someone saw me, not as a fraud, not as a case file, but as a moment that still beat beneath her skin. The silence stretched like the field tent ceiling had back then. Thick, low, trembling, she nodded, once, then said, "Court resumes in 10. But her tone had changed. It wasn't procedural anymore, it was personal. And I knew from that moment forward, I wasn't alone in the room anymore. Day 4, final session. Their lawyer had that glint in his eye like the game was already won. He clicked the remote, another slide appeared. Burden of proof not met. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we have no records, no commanding officers, no discharge status, not even a photo of MS, Kaylin in uniform." He turned toward the bench. "With all due respect, Your Honor, if this woman truly served her country, surely someone, anyone, would remember her." He raised his arms wide, a grand gesture, theatrical. "So I ask plainly, who in this room is willing to stake their name, their title, their legacy, on the claim that Mira Kaylin ever belonged to the battlefield?" The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded, like a wire stretched to its snapping point. And then Judge Velez spoke, slow, precise, controlled. "I will." The lawyer froze, so did the room. The jurors leaned forward, pens paused in midair. "12 years ago," she said, "my unit's convoy was hit outside Grid Echo 31. Drone shrapnel. I took a chest wound, arterial. The evac drone couldn't lift me with active bleeding. My body temp was dropping. I remember thinking, this is it." She exhaled, but it wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. Then someone clamped my artery with the edge of her earring, used the heat seal from a ration pouch to seal the skin. She didn't give a name, just whispered, "Don't remember me, just remember you lived." She looked straight at me. I did remember. Not the face, not the voice, but the technique. And just now in this courtroom, she described it down to the exact pressure point. No one else would know that, not unless they'd been there. The room cracked, not in sound, but in stillness. My brother's eyes widened. My sister gasped. My mother, her mouth parted, but no sound came out. Judge Velez placed both hands on the bench, steady, centered. "So if you need a witness, a signature, or a legacy to validate her, you have mine. Mira Kaylin is not a fraud. She is the reason I am alive." And just like that, every lie they had rehearsed, every rumor they had whispered, every doubt they had planted collapsed under one sentence. "I am the proof." The order came down within hours. Emergency declassification, limited scope, need to know only. They unlocked a sliver of Operation Leviathan, just enough for light to get through. Chain of custody logs, drone telemetry, field triage schema. A burst of encrypted medstream data with a timestamp that matched the night I stopped a bleed with the back of an earring. Names were still blacked out, but the movements weren't. The pressure points weren't. The 9-minute hold wasn't. By afternoon, the clerk received the packet. By evening, the case was dismissed with prejudice. No speeches, no podium, no victory parade, just a judge's signature and silence breathing again. My family didn't speak to me in the hallway. There was nothing left to say. Their lawyer brushed past, smelling like cologne, and spent arguments. My mother kept her eyes on the exit. My brother chewed his cheek like there was still a fight to win. My sister's pearls were suddenly too heavy for her neck. I walked the other way. The calls started before I reached the street. Networks, podcasts, exclusive heroine interview. Your side of the story. America needs to hear. No, America doesn't need to hear everything. Some wars are kinder without commentary. I turned the phone off. Let the world find another noise. Wyoming was cold when I got back. Good. Cold makes you honest. The cabin held its shape like it had been waiting for me to choose life again. I stacked wood, boiled water, stitched a torn sleeve on a coat I'd left dangling by the door the day the subpoena arrived. There's a veterans clinic an hour away, past a line of pines that whistle at dusk. I drive there twice a week now, not to tell stories, to listen to the ones that won't leave. Sometimes I show a kid how to steady his hands without caffeine. Sometimes I sit with someone's mother when the room goes too quiet. We don't talk about clearance, we talk about breathing. A week after the dismissal, a parcel arrived, no return address. Inside, a photo, grainy, night vision green, a small field tent, 2 hands in frame, mine red up to the wrists. A face half covered in shadow, eyes open, jaw set against the kind of pain there isn't a word for. On the back, a line in black ink. Don't let them make you small. LV. I didn't cry, didn't smile. I hung the photo over the fireplace, between a map of the range and a nail where my father's watch used to be. People think justice sounds like clapping. It doesn't. It sounds like a heartbeat steadying, like breath returning to rhythm, like a door closing softly on a room that no longer owns you. I didn't post, didn't trend, didn't call anyone back. I made tea. I watched the ridge turn the color of old bronze, and I let the quiet do what it does best. Keep what matters and release what doesn't. Justice doesn't always come with applause. Some truths exist in silence.